Welcome back, everybody, to another edition of Unbashful. I am your host, Nicholas Doucette. I want to thank you for stopping by here for episode 43. Wow, we are just racking up there, getting up there in these episodes. Time is flying. I hope you're all doing well. Hope you're happy and healthy and safe and everything in between. There is quite a few exciting things that I want to talk about here today in regards to the movie, television, media sphere. And we're going to kick it off with DC. I don't really talk about DC that much on this channel here because just for the simple fact that I have not been very interested or very kind of excited for the things that DC has been doing. Don't get me wrong, the Batman, still I think probably my favorite film of this year, and Joker, things like that. But that also, therein lies the problem at the same time, because with Marvel, they had their cinematic universe, and DC attempted to start a cinematic universe several years ago with Zack Snyder and all of them, and then it all kind of fell apart. And ever since then, they've sort of been having this kind of identity crisis, right? Some of their films are in the cinematic universe. Some of their films are maybe cinematic universe adjacent, like of course the Batman, the Joker. These are great films, don't get me wrong, but I kind of want to see them flesh out. Excuse me. Sorry about that. Let's turn that off there. I'm not sure why that was on. As I was saying, I would like to see them kind of flesh out this cinematic universe, and I think with Black Adam, which is what I'm about to discuss next, I think that we're finally starting to see that Warner Brothers is making it a priority to kind of bring the cinematic universe together in a cohesive way. And, they're not copying Marvel. They're kind of setting their own path, which I think is the right thing to do. And I think that they rushed into the Justice League far too quick. I personally believe that, look, it's if it ain't broke, don't fix it, right? And I'm referring to the approach that Marvel took. You gave three of their Avenger characters, Iron Man, Captain America, Thor. You gave three of them their first solo films, introduced their worlds, introduced the characters that are around them, the supporting characters, introduce their sort of nuances and things like that. And then you kind of, plant the seeds, lead the breadcrumbs, then you eventually team up to that film. Whereas with the Justice League, we pretty much only got two films, right? We got, of course, Superman, and then we got Batman v Superman. So really, it was almost like 1.5 films because we got a new Batman at that time, but we didn't get a solo Batman film. They did enough to kind of flesh out that character of, the Ben Affleck iteration. And, we all know the Batman origin story, Martha Thomas Wayne, they get shot in Crime Alley, so on and so forth. And I feel like they just rushed into that too quick. And then, of course, when they made Justice League, everybody knows what happened with, Joss Whedon and Zack Snyder. I'm not going to hash it out, but let's just get into Black Adam. So Black Adam, I think, is a step in the right direction for where DC wants to go moving forward. Throughout this film, many, many times, there's like 20 or 30 references to other characters. When we see the kid character in the film, we're in his room and you can see he's got Batman posters, he's got Flash posters, he's got comics, he's got action figures. So they're clearly, but the one thing that I want to address first is the fact that there was actually quite a few references to Batman, which does surprise me because in terms of their cinematic universe, Batman has been the one biggest question mark. We have Robert Pattinson, but we know Robert Pattinson's Batman, at least not for the foreseeable future. He will not be a part of this cinematic universe moving forward. We know that universe that's a whole cinematic universe in and of itself, right? We're going to address some actual Batman spin-off news later in the podcast here, but Batman specifically, because he is a very pivotal character in this universe, you need a Batman. Batman, of course, is the one who pretty much oversees the Justice League, brings the characters together. He's kind of like the brains of the organization. So you do need a Batman. I mean, you can have a Justice League without him in a, cinematic universe movie form, but people are going to want to see Batman interact with Flash, interact with Aquaman. And the fact that there's a couple references to Batman does lead me to believe that Warner Brothers has some plans in store, whether they decide to bring Ben Affleck back to play the character full-time. I have my reservations about that. Or if Michael Keaton is coming to play the character full-time. There has been a lot of rumors about that as well. We do know that we're going to see him in The Flash. So Well, we may not know that answer. Definitely, it does seem like Warner Brothers has a plan in store for that character, so that's nice. So yeah, lots of references to other characters in the DCEU, and I think the biggest connection would probably be towards Shazam. Now, I'll be honest with you, I have not seen the Shazam movie, but I've done my research, and correct me if I'm wrong for those of you who've seen it, but I do know that the gods that were in the Shazam film that gave Shazam that specific power were also in this film to sort of give Black Adam's power. And if Black Adam wants to go back to his original form, he has to still say that same word Shazam. So, of course, there's that connection there. And, we will, of course, address the Superman, the Henry Cavill post-credit scene. I mean, I think at this point, it's not even a spoiler. Most people watched the post-credit scene before the film even came out. I'm one of those people. I watched it before it came out just because I'm not, like I said, I haven't been as intrigued and as hooked with DC as I am with Marvel. And it's sad because I love both sides of the comic book spectrum. I love DC and I love Marvel. Batman is my favorite superhero of all time, but Marvel has been, for the last 10 years, my favorite collection of superheroes to watch on screen. But I've been interested in both sides. But like I said, DC has kind of had this sort of, they've been directionless. It doesn't really seem like there's some kind of big event that they're building towards with of course, the Marvel films. We know that there's the Kang Dynasty, there's Secret Wars. So, we have a sort of end goal in sight to look forward to. But, and even as of recent, you want to talk identity crisis, the new Warner Brothers leadership has come in, the old leadership was gone. Like, when you think of Marvel, you know who the leader of the operation is in terms of, productions. It's Kevin Feige, right? And if you think of DC, unless you're someone like me or people that are very heavily involved in the film, comic book world community, you probably won't be able to think off the top of your head, who is the kind of main leader of the DCEU? I mean, you could think of maybe Walter Hamada, even though he just left recently. There was Toby Emmerich, but he's gone now. Jason Collard. So all of those guys are gone. And the new owner of Warner Brothers Discovery, David Zaslav, has expressed that the priority moving forward is to make DC a main player in the comic book genre. I mean, those aren't his exact words, but that's, basically what he's echoed. He's explained that we want to focus on the main IPs, the main characters that most audiences are familiar with, right? Before that announcement happened, it seemed like DC was kind of diverting sort of to the sides and introducing these more obscure characters, which is fine. You can do that, but I feel like that's something you should do afterwards once you've had your main staple characters established and in the universe. That's what Marvel did. That's why Marvel didn't introduce the Guardians of the Galaxy or Antman until several years after we were introduced to Iron Man, Captain America, Thor, etc. So now that we're seeing that Henry Cavill is back as Superman, we have the Flash film coming soon, even though Ezra Miller's probably going to get recast. We have Wonder Woman still. Like I said, Batman seems to be still a player in this universe. And now we have Henry Cavill returning. And now we have Black Adam and Shazam, and Aquaman. So you can start to see that they're starting to make these films a priority, and they're almost going to maybe do like a soft reboot of the Justice League, take their time, build up to that, not rush into it. Because, look, if you're DC, and I know that this isn't their thought process. I'm sure that they're well aware that we will not catch Marvel. We will not even come close to Marvel in terms of, their cinematic universe success as of right now. We have to sort of just, mind our own business and focus on ourselves and build our own cinematic universe, and then our success will come in due time. And I think that's what they're doing. They seem to be taking their time, building out, fleshing out these films. David Zaslav said in the investors' earners call, that we're not going to release films that aren't ready. We will take our time. If we have to delay them 6 times, we will do so until we are confident that the films are ready to be shipped in front of audiences in theaters, rolling on screen. So anyways, I am getting so off track. let's get back to Black Adam. So in terms of the story, we have, I think his name is Teth Adam in the film, The Rock's character. He gets summoned from his tomb. He's back in Kahndaq in present day, and he's trying to figure out what's going on. And then there's this threat of the JSA. And let me talk about the JSA for a sec, because I really, really enjoyed the JSA. I like Cyclone. I feel like she was probably the character that wasn't given enough screen time or enough kind of awe moments of some of these other characters. But I liked Atom Smasher. I really, really liked Hawkman, and I loved Dr. Fate. Of course, there is quite a few comparisons with Dr. Fate and Doctor Strange, but I actually think they're pretty different in terms of their abilities, even how they look. I think the way Dr. Fate looks with the gold helmet is so cool, and I really hope that in some kind of way we'll maybe see him again in the future. Hawkman, of course, there's a lot of parallels to Falcon. I think his suit and I think his actual wings in this film were actually, in my opinion, cooler and more entertaining to see it in action than I think Falcon. Just my opinion. Overall, I prefer the Falcon character. I prefer Sam Wilson. But yeah, so the story of this film, like, I'm even trying to explain it off the top of my head, and I can't even fully really do that. I can't even really think about it off the top of my head. Basically, Black Adam goes against the JSA. Then towards the end of the film, there's this ultra greater threat that has to, that requires even more manpower against it. And then we have the JSA and Black Adam team up together. And then there's questions of, ethics and morality with Black Adam being a hero. Is he a hero? Is he not? He kills people, but does he only kill bad people? So, of course, very common tropes and themes that you've seen in a lot of superhero films. And, just to talk about The Rock's performance, I thought he was fine. Obviously, no Oscar-worthy performance or anything like that. But, I think his performance was pretty good. He's a lot more serious in this film than he is in maybe some of his previous roles. But just to talk about The Rock for a second, he is such a great promoter, and that is something I do want to give him credit for, because oftentimes with these superhero films that come out, you see that there's a lot of press happening, and the actors are getting asked questions and whatnot. And is it just me, or do some of these actors seem just unenthusiastic to even be a part of the project? Or they're all giving very kind of black and white answers, just but with The Rock, his enthusiasm as he discusses the films in interview for Black Adam, it's infectious. And that in and of itself will bring in more audiences and bring in more people, because they're going to see him talk about the film in interviews, and they're going to be like, wow, he's really confident in it. He's really excited about it. I want to go see it. I want to go see if it's as good as he thinks it is. So that is one thing that I admire a lot, because you could tell that he's very proud of this film, whether, everybody loves it or not. He's proud of this film. He's excited for audiences to see it. And he knows that this film has been a long time coming, because I think Black Adam was announced over 10 years ago. And it's pretty much just kind of been a wait and see up until then. So overall, I think I addressed all my points in regards to Black Adam. I'm excited to see him in the future in other films. And, I think the future's looking bright for DC, and I think that, if all goes well, we can maybe, have two cinematic universes that we can be excited for. We have, of course, Marvel and what they're doing, building up with the multiverse saga, and then who knows with the ultra greater threat. Maybe they'll reintroduce Darkseid. I've heard rumors that Black Adam himself will be the main kind of antagonist that the cinematic universe is revolving around. I don't believe so, because I think it is... Well, throughout the film, they kind of make you question as an audience member, is he a hero or not? I think by the end, I would consider him a hero. Maybe a darker hero, maybe even trending towards anti-hero, but I definitely wouldn't call him a villain at all, or even an antagonist, just in my opinion. Last thing to address, I almost forgot about this, the Henry Cavill Superman news and post-credit scene. The post-credit scene was cool. I wasn't jumping out of my chair. Me personally, I've never been that big of a fan of the Superman character. I personally just feel like he is so overpowered, and there's nothing about his character that is incredibly relatable to audiences. Like, he's this alien from outer space. I guess the only thing you could say about him that's relatable is the fact that when he is in society, he feels like an outsider. He feels alienated, which, I mean, I'll give him credit. That is something that some people do feel. Even from time to time in my early years, I've felt like that before as well. So, that is something that can be related to audiences. But overall, I feel like his film or his character is just so powerful that it's just hard to tell a compelling story and have an adversary go up against him that's actually going to challenge him without it just being a very formulaic, like, this is the superhero of the movie that we got. We just need a reason for Superman to, go head to head with somebody. So, I'm interested to see what they're going to do with Henry Cavill, because there is official news that he is fully back as Superman, not even just for a cameo. Apparently, he's re-signed for a multi-picture film deal, and apparently he's going to be getting his own film, like his own sequel to Man of Steel. And, I like Man of Steel. I haven't really seen any of the other superhero. I haven't seen Superman Returns. I haven't seen the Christopher Reeve Superman. So, as we hear more about it, maybe I'll get more excited. But yeah, that's pretty much all my thoughts in regards to Black Adam. Let me know how you guys feel. Give your letter grade. I'd probably give it a solid B, not a B minus, not a B plus, just kind of like a solid B. I thought it was a thrilling, fun ride. The action scenes were incredible. That if you're going into this film looking for just to be entertained, you will be entertained. I promise you that. All right, guys, let's transition to Marvel and talk about Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania. So Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania has been a film that I've been very, very excited for ever since the announcement that Jonathan Majors as Kang would be essentially the main antagonist of this film. And a lot of people were kind of scratching their heads like, you're going to have Kang be the villain of an Ant-Man movie? And I think now we're starting to see why that's the case. I think from a story perspective, what's likely going to happen, and what I've heard through leaks and rumors, is that Ant-Man is trying to control the center of time in the quantum realm, and he needs Scott Lang's help to help him do that. But I doubt he's really going to give Scott Lang an option. I feel like he's probably just going to try and, use his threat, use his abilities to try and make him his sort of like puppet to sort of do whatever he wants. Who knows? I could be way off with the story, but this is a film that I've been very, very excited for. It comes out right around my birthday, and the trailer for it just came out today, and it wasn't the same trailer that was dropped at Comic-Con. I could just tell. There was a lot of new scenes, a lot of scenes from the Comic-Con trailer that weren't in this film, or in this trailer rather. Even the last scene where it showed that close-up of Kang, of Jonathan Majors, it was a completely different line. In the D23 Comic-Con trailer that they showed, I think Kang said, he talked about the Avengers. He talked about how, he's seen, he's fought them before and they all eventually go, which is a killer line, by the way. And then, of course, he says, are you, you're an Avenger. Have I killed you before? That is such a cool line. It's too bad we didn't get to see that in this trailer. Maybe they're holding out on that for the next trailer. Who knows? Although I doubt it, because it looks like that was the same shot. Maybe just that was the same scene. Maybe they just did multiple takes for the trailer. We all know that Marvel loves to kind of mislead us with these trailers. So maybe when we see the film, it'll be that line from that trailer. Who knows? But this film looks incredible, and I want to give a shout out to the art team, to the visual effects team. This looks like it took a lot of work. Just the scale and the artistic elements of the quantum realm. It does look different from the quantum realm that we visited in the other Ant-Man films, but it looks better. I think there's more detail, there's more life breathed into it, there's literal more life. We see that there's other characters that, very reminiscent of characters we've seen in like the Guardians of the Galaxy world from these other planets. I just think it looks incredibly exciting. Of course, Ant-Man himself, he's one of my favorite characters in the MCU. I think his first film that introduced him was probably... It's probably top 10 for me. I really do think it's underrated. Smaller in scale, but I think a pretty good story and very good performances across the board. We have Michelle Pfeiffer coming back. We have Michael Douglas coming back. And we have a new actress playing Scott Lang's daughter. She was recasted from Avengers Endgame. I'm not too sure why. Maybe they just felt the better actress. Who knows? I can't really remember her name, but I want to talk about Kang for a sec, because Kang is a villain that I am so fucking excited for. Just the actor himself, Jonathan Majors, he's just popping off in Hollywood. We're seeing him get role after role after role. He's in the new Creed film. We know that he's going to be playing Dennis Rodman in an upcoming biopic about him. He's a great actor. He is really phenomenal. His line delivery is amazing. Like I said, if you can even find it, go on YouTube and look for the San Diego Comic-Con trailer that they showed for this film. It is different, like I said, but the final couple lines he delivers towards the end, like, you're an Avenger, have I killed you before? And he's like, they all go together after a while. That just sent chills down my spine. Like I said, I'm really hoping we get to see that trailer as the next trailer, maybe. But just the quantum realm, like I said, in general, we see that Kang has this army. If you look very, very closely, it almost looks like they're all dressed like him. They all have the sort of blue helmet. Maybe not the same kind of clothing, but they all kind of look the same. And I'm curious as to what's going to happen at the end of this film, because I doubt Antman is going to actually defeat Kang, because we know that Kang is going to be one of, if not the main villain for this next saga. I'm sure Doctor Doom will be introduced in Wakanda Forever, because there's a lot of rumors about that, and I believe them. But so I don't think that he will be defeated in this film, but something has to happen at the end of this film. Who knows? Maybe they're going to end on some crazy cliffhanger. I don't think Scott Lang is going to die, or maybe because we know that Jonathan Majors is going to be returning in multiple other projects. Maybe this version of Kang gets defeated, and then Scott Lang's like, another one gone, and then he finds out that, there's like an infinite amount of Kangs. Who knows? I'm speculating at this point. But I'm really, really excited for this film. This kicks off Phase 5, and the director, Peyton Reed, has expressed how this film is going to change the course of the MCU permanently moving forward. So, of course, we always hear discussions like that heading into a Marvel film. So, no surprise. But nonetheless, it is very exciting to hear that. And they dropped this pretty early. I didn't expect them to drop it so soon. No less right before another Marvel film is coming out shortly, Black Panther Wakanda Forever. But, I guess they want to get the hype train rolling. I mean, the film is only 4 or 5 months out, so I guess it's not too far off. But yeah, let me know what you guys think about Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania. Are you excited for this film? Are you excited to see Kang? I think his costume looked incredible. I wonder if his costume is practical, like if he's actually wearing that, or if he, of course, had to wear the motion capture suit. I'm sure for some scenes he probably did, but for that shot, it looked incredibly real. And if it isn't real, then once again, hats off to the visual effects team, because they did a fantastic job. But let's move on now to Creed 3. I've been a pretty big fan of the Creed franchise. Not as big of a fan as the Rocky franchise. It just kind of wasn't my time, or I guess wasn't in my generation. Nonetheless, I still watch older films, but wasn't as interested as in Rocky. But with Creed, I've really enjoyed these two films that we've had. The first one is probably still my favorite, and this trailer for the third film, the third installment in this franchise, looks incredible. This film looks like it could be the best one, and we have Michael B. Jordan not only starring in the film as Adonis Creed, but he's actually making his directorial debut, and he's going to be directing this film. So a lot of responsibility, a lot of pressure on him, but I'm confident in him. He's worked in this industry for over 10, 15 years, so I'm sure he's probably seen and worked with some fantastic directors and picked up on some different techniques and skills. So now he's probably developed so many different tools in his toolbox. I think he must have felt that he was ready to kind of take on this franchise. And what a better way to start than the Creed franchise, because he's familiar with it. He's familiar with the characters. He knows what he wants. He knows the story, and he knows what decisions need to be made. So good for him. He looks great. He looks jacked. And then once again, we have Jonathan Majors, who I was just talking about with Ant-Man. He is an incredible actor, and I think he once again looks like he's going to knock it out of the park in this film. He's playing the antagonist of this film, at least that's what it looks like. And the story, to me, of this third Creed film is actually, I think, probably the most intriguing thing for me. And it really does kind of go back to the first film. And it looks like, to me, what's happening is that Damien, which is the character that Jonathan Majors is playing, was serving an 18-year sentence, and he was one of Adonis's friends when they were young kids in juvenile detention center. And that's how we were introduced to Adonis Creed in that first film. He was just a kid in juvie. And I guess at that time, him and Damien were like best friends. And then eventually Adonis left, and then, the rest is history. He became a famous world champion fighter. And throughout that time, Damien was behind bars, and he had to just watch from the sideline, so to speak, and just sort of hear about the success that his best friend, or once was his best friend, was having, because of course I'm sure they lost connection. And he even expresses that in the trailer, that like, you didn't come visit me, none of that. So it looks like throughout this time, maybe some jealousy, maybe some envy was built up, from Damien's character. And now that he's out, he wants a chance to prove what he's capable of as a fighter. And, the time that he spent in prison, he trained. And of course, Jonathan Majors is in absolute peak physical shape. A lot of people and a lot of fans speculated that he got in that shape for Ant-Man. I actually think that was more to do with this film, because this film I feel like will probably require a lot more shirtless scenes than Quantumania does, if any, if Quantumania even has any shirtless scenes. I think the majority of the time we're going to see that character is going to be in the Kang costume. But yeah, I think this film looks exciting. It looks like it could honestly be the best one in the franchise. Will this be the last one? Probably not. There's probably going to be like 4 or 5 more. Who knows? That was just, I'm drinking iced coffee, by the way, for those of you that are listening. So where was I here? Yeah, I think this looks great. It comes out March 3rd, I believe, of next year. So yeah, next year is going to be killer for movies, man. We got Oppenheimer, we got Quantumania, we got Killers of the Flower Moon. I'm probably forgetting some other films. I know David Fincher had a film called The Killers. I think that got pushed to next year. So we have quite a few exciting films to look forward to next year. But yeah, Creed 3. Let me know what you guys are thinking. Are you excited for this film? Are you not? Tell me where your head's at with it down in the comments below. Now we're gonna move on. We got some Batman news. We got some Batman spin-off films. Now, when I say spin-off films, I mean spin-off films from the Matt Reeves Batman film that we've just got. So it now seems like Matt Reeves is sort of like the main producer in the sort of Kevin Feige, if you will, of the Batman cinematic universe. So let's go ahead and talk about that. So before I get into more detail about these spin-offs, I'm going to actually read the official article from The Hollywood Reporter from Boris Kitt, and he spoke about this announcement and saying, quote, "The filmmaker," referring to Matt Reeves, "is meeting with writers and producers and directors," let me restart that. "The filmmaker is meeting with the writers and directors to build out movies. Yes, movies, not just series, focus on Batman's rogues gallery, both established and more obscure, with characters ranging from the Scarecrow to Clayface to Professor Pig. All those projects are in the early stages of gestation." Okay. So I have a couple of thoughts on this. The first of which is the potential is exciting, especially with Matt Reeves not directing these projects, because of course, as the article just annotated, he's looking for directors and looking for writers. But the fact that his vision and his hand and his sort of like creative style is going to be on these projects and involved with these projects, that does excite me, because the potential that we could, the different stories that we could see in this world that Matt Reeves has built is very exciting, because I think the Gotham City that was shown to us in that first Batman film is almost a character in and of itself. And throughout Gotham City, there are different characters and there are different storylines that we could explore. So the potential of that, the potential to see these different spin-offs with these other, as the article said, more obscure characters, that does intrigue me quite a bit. But here is where my concern comes in, right? So these characters that the article mentioned here, Scarecrow, Clayface, and Professor Pig. These are Batman antagonists. And what my concern with these projects in these separate films developing these characters, my concern is that it really does kind of remind me of what Sony is doing. Now, I know that these are two different studios, two different creatives behind this, but if we just look at what Sony is doing right now, developing their rogues gallery, if you will, of Spider-Man villains, many of them have gotten their own solo spin-off films, like, of course, Venom. He's well into his own franchise with his 2 films, and then we have Morbius, of course, and now we know that Kraven the Hunter is coming, and then we have an El Muerto film coming, and we have Madam Web, although Madam Web isn't she's not an antagonist, she's actually more of a supporting character to help Spider-Man. So with the exception of her, we have basically 4 Spider-Man villains, and possibly even more being developed. And the issue with this specifically is that when you have a film and you're developing projects that are all about the antagonist surrounding one specific hero, what happens is that in their respective films, you build these characters up to almost become protagonists, to almost become heroes in and of themselves. And then eventually you understand as an audience member that they're building up to this inevitable fight to go against whatever respective hero is, of that universe. And then the problem with that is, like, the audience now knows these characters and they're familiar with these characters as heroes because that's what they've been built up to be, right? Like, if you look at Venom, in my eyes, isn't even really an antagonist anymore. I look at him and Eddie Brock as a hero, right? I honestly, he could stand side by side and be part of the Avengers for all we know. Like, that is how they've developed him. They haven't developed him to really be an adversary to Spider-Man. So then when that happens, it's almost not even going to be natural. It's not going to be organic. It's going to be artificial. It's going to be forced. And that's my issue, and that's my potential concern with these characters. These characters, I mean, maybe these projects won't even happen. I mean, we hear every week about a new film that's being developed, and oftentimes they just don't happen. So that could be the case. But I'm pretty confident that these are going to happen just because of the success that we saw Matt Reeves had, not only with Batman, but a lot of people forget he directed the last 2 Planet of the Apes films, which did very, very well financially for Warner Brothers. So I think these are going to happen, and I'm just concerned that we're going to get these films of Clayface, Professor Pig, Scarecrow, and they're going to develop these characters. They're going to make the audience grow attached to them, and we're going to be cheering for them. And then when that inevitable, interaction between them and Batman happens, it's going to be like, okay, who do we root for here? Like, we know who Batman is, but he's fighting these characters that we've now seen previously, and we've seen them victorious in their films, and it's going to be this weird sort of like, you're going to be asking the audience a lot, in my opinion, to kind of differentiate, like, and like I said, if they just throw these characters in another Batman film eventually, and then they're suddenly evil, and then it's just going to be out of character, right? So I don't know. That is my concern. But then again, I am kind of looking at it from a very kind of closed-minded perspective because I'm just looking at what Sony's done. And Sony and the Spider-Man universe and the Batman universe are 2 completely separate things. So I'm looking at it very cynically, if that's even a word. I'm looking at it from a very cynical perspective, I guess would be the better way to form that sentence. But yeah, but as I mentioned, on the other hand, this could also be very, very intriguing, and they could do this right. They could do this in a way that allows for a lot of creative freedom to let these actual villains be villains. Like, you can make a supervillain story separate. Like, you can make a supervillain movie and actually have them be villains. The problem is that if you give, Scarecrow, for example, his own film, and then you put him up against a villain for his movie, then you're essentially making what is a villain, you're now making this more of an anti-hero, right? Which I'm not the biggest fan of personally for me. So I'm gonna try and remain optimistic, given that this is Matt Reeves sort of overseeing these projects. But I do have my concerns, but I'm going to try to reserve full judgment until I hear more about the details of these projects. But, maybe I'm kind of being a little too, nihilistic here about the potential of these. Let me know what you guys think about this down in the comments below. But now we're going to move on to some Marvel stuff. We're kind of bouncing back and forth this episode between Marvel and between DC. But let's address Blade. So, I'm not going to lie, this is kind of older news. I'm sure many of you at this point have probably heard about this stuff regarding Blade and the Marvel delays and stuff, but I've been pretty busy in my own personal life. There's been some things going on. Nothing bad, actually quite good to be quite honest with you, but it's required a lot of my attention, so I didn't really have time to cover this stuff, but I mean, fuck it, whatever. I'm going to give my thoughts. We're just going to roll with it. So, Blade, let's address Blade. So this comes from The Hollywood Reporter. This article was written by Aaron Couch and Boris Kitts. Quote, Blade, which has a release date of November 3rd, 2023, was gearing up to begin shooting in November in Atlanta. It is unclear how Tarek's departure will impact the production start of the vampire action thriller, which has Oscar winner Mahershala Ali in the title role, with the cast also including Delroy Lindo and old actor Aaron Pierre. The quote went on to say, due to this, let me see here. Oh yeah, so this was a statement that came from Marvel. Due to continued shifts in our production schedule, Bazem, he's referring to the former director of the film, is no longer moving forward as director of Blade, but will remain an executive producer of the film, Marvel said in a statement to The Hollywood Reporter. We appreciate Bazem's talent and all the work he's done getting Blade to where it is. So, I guess I didn't really kind of preface what I was about to read. For those of you who don't know, there has been some kind of production drama when it comes to Marvel's upcoming Blade. The director dropped, I say that in air quotes, he dropped out of the project a couple months before the film was supposed to start shooting. I think as the article said, it was supposed to start shooting November, I believe. Now there's some rumors as to what actually happened in terms of why he left the project. Some people just think that Kevin Feige just booted him out, and apparently a lot of that had to do with the script. Now, he didn't write the script, but apparently some of the suggestions he had to save or salvage the script, because apparently the script for this film was really bad. It was apparently only 90 pages long, had like 2, as people are calling it, lackluster action scenes, and apparently Mahershala Ali was not happy at all with the script. And then the director tried to step in, Bazem Tarek, and he tried to say, like, we could do this, we could do that, and apparently the suggestions were just not doing it any favors either. So they came to some creative differences, and so either maybe he voluntarily left the project, or maybe it was a mutual decision, or maybe Kevin Feige just said, you know what, I just think it's not going to work out. Thank you for your help. You can stay on as executive producer, and we'll find somebody else. Who knows, but it's clearly not going as planned, and it kind of sucks because this is a project that I am incredibly excited for. I think Blade has the potential to be one of the most interesting characters in the MCU. And for the simple fact that you have Mahershala Ali attached to this role, it's not easy getting actors as talented as him to come into the superhero genre, because we all know that a lot of people in Hollywood have a prejudice against this genre. Of course, Martin Scorsese and many others have expressed their distaste and how the superhero genre takes away from other films and whatnot. We've all heard it before. I personally don't agree with those views. I just think a good film is a good film at the end of the day. If you can tell a good story, you can't blame the audiences for, wanting to see your film. Just as on the other side of the token, when you tell a good story about, more of an independent film, if it's a good story and it draws audiences in, you can't blame audiences for wanting to go see that film over a superhero film. So it goes both ways, but the fact that you have Mahershala Ali, who right now, the current MCU actors and actresses, you could argue that Mahershala Ali is the most talented actor in the MCU. Now, I know he's not in the MCU yet, but I mean, technically he is. He had that little post-credit scene in Eternals. So you have one of the most talented there is working in Hollywood today. And the fact that it hasn't really seemed like Blade has been a priority for Marvel. Now, I understand Marvel's got a long list of projects that they're all trying to work together. But Blade should be up there. Like I said, you have an extremely once in a lifetime talented actor at your fingertips. You've signed him. You have him. If you fuck around too long and you take too long to get this film made, this guy's going to say, see ya, I got to make other movies. I got other people wanting to work with me. So they got to get a director fast. And I'm sure Marvel behind the scenes is already talking to many, many directors. And it's not uncommon for Marvel to find a director that's not necessarily well known to the general public. But the director that they had before, Bazem Tarek, I looked at his IMDb, and he's really kind of, unknown, if you will. Now, I don't want to sound like a dick. I'm unknown. Nobody knows who the fuck I am. But, I mean, in terms of Marvel and sort of the talent that they found, you could even point to other directors. Like, if you look at James Gunn, even he had a couple of films that had some kind of an audience. And Bazem Tarek did have some projects, but he was, like, very, very unknown compared to some of the other unknown, I say in air quotes, directors that Marvel has got. So, I really hope that they kind of swing for the fences and, bump up the Brinks truck and find someone that's a really talented director. Apparently Mahershala Ali is still on board with this film. Apparently he's helping in that search of finding a new director. So he's almost acting as a producer now of this film. So I really hope they can find a director quickly, because if they take too long and this project just becomes a total mess, I would not be surprised if Mahershala Ali walks. I really am hoping that doesn't happen, but, fingers crossed, let's hope for the best. But let me know what you guys think about the whole Blade drama. Are you kind of worried that or do you think Mahershala is even going to end up being this character or remaining as this character before the film even comes out? Who knows? I'm going to remain optimistic, but let me know down in the comments below. So once all the news regarding Blade and the whole production stuff that we just talked about happened, shortly afterwards, Marvel announced that several of their other upcoming films had to be delayed as well. I assume it probably is the result of Blade getting delayed, since these films are so kind of connected. And since it's a cinematic universe, if one film comes out, if the schedule changes, that film is then, connected to another film, and then it kind of fucks up the whole timeline in the story. So then I'm sure it was kind of like a domino effect. Or, some of these films getting delayed could have been a decision that was already made a while ago, and maybe it's just a coincidence that it came out shortly after that. Who knows? But this article comes from Variety. It was written by Rebecca Rubin. Quote, plus Icon as part of the shuffle, Blade has moved from November 3rd, 2023 to November 6th, 2024, which created a ripple on the rest of the MCU. Deadpool 3 has relocated from September 6th, 2024 to November 8th, 2024. Fantastic Four has shifted from November 8th, 2024 to then February 14th, 2025. And an untitled Marvel film has been pushed to February 14th, 2025 to November 5th, 2025. And then Avengers Secret Wars has been delayed from November 7th, 2025 to May 1st, 2026. And another untitled Marvel film set for May 1st, 2026 has been removed from Disney's calendar. Okay, so there's a lot to unpack there. Let's kind of start with Deadpool here. Deadpool only moved a couple months to November 8th. Not really a big deal. Fantastic Four moved from all the way from November 8th to February 14th to the next year. That's a big deal. That pushes the film even that much further away. We're now 3 years away from this film, which is crazy. And, looking back, I'm not as surprised now that we didn't hear any of the cast about Fantastic Four at D23. It still would have been exciting, of course. I'm still disappointed we didn't hear about anything, but I can understand it now a little bit better now that we've got this announcement and the film is even further ahead than we think. Now, I do believe that they have some of the people casted already, maybe not the full cast of the Fantastic Four, but I do believe that they have the Reed Richards. I believe that they have their Sue Storm, but that remains to be seen. So yeah, that moves quite a bit. And then after that, we have an untitled Marvel film. We don't know what that is quite yet. And then we have Avengers Secret Wars. That moves pretty much an entire year. So now, but when Avengers Kang Dynasty comes out, because that film still has its release date for, I think it's May of 2025. Now that film is going to have a year. It's going to be like Avengers Endgame and Infinity War. Infinity War came out, then we had to wait a year until we got Endgame, so we were kind of left scrapping at the bit for details, news, and it basically looks like that's going to be the same kind of schedule for Avengers Secret Wars. It's basically going to come out an entire year after Kang Dynasty. And you know what? I think this is actually a good move. 2 Avengers films in the same year, not to mention that year is 2025. That is not far from now at all. I was always kind of concerned that is going to be a lot. They would have to have start filming both of these films back to back almost immediately. And I mean, I was almost sure they were going to have to delay one of these films. I mean, they just started to announce that that they found the writers. So, like, they haven't even wrote the scripts of these films yet. Like, if they really wanted to make that 2025 release, they would have had to start filming next year. Like, both of those films. Not to mention, some of these characters in these Avengers films still have their films to come out. Like, the schedule wouldn't have even made sense at all. And Secret Wars is a massive story, and I want to see that film done right. That film, if done correctly, will be better than Infinity War and Endgame. I can almost guarantee you. You know, the possibilities of what they can do is incredible. And I'm not even just talking about the cameos. I'm talking about the story itself, the story of Battleworld, the incursions, the Beyonder, Doctor Doom. Like, that is such a rich story to tell. There's so many different versions in different directions they could go. They can go from the Jonathan Hickman run from 2015, I think, or they could go all the way back to the 80s when they did the first run of Secret Wars, when Spider-Man got the symbiote suit. So, like, I want to see that done right, and I want to see them take their time with it. So I think this is a positive move to shift it up to 2026. That's now a lot more reasonable for them to start shooting these films. I'm sure they'll definitely shoot them back to back, but now they don't have that pressure of, like, I mean, if you really think about it, 2025, like, that's like right around the corner. So now they don't have to worry about that kind of up and coming schedule coming even closer and closer. Now they have a little bit more breathing room. And I think this is actually better news, not just for the cast. I think this is better news for the visual effects artists, because there's been rumors that they've been just hung dry and they've been worked to the bone. And I think now this is going to definitely give them a lot more time to flesh out the visual effects, because that film is going to be all visual effects. Like, it's going to be crazy. So I think this is a positive move. Even Kang Dynasty, like, I could even see that film getting delayed, because, like I said, that's right around the corner, and they just started working on the script for that film. I don't know. I mean, then again, if they delay Kang Dynasty, they're probably going to then have to delay Secret Wars again. So, I mean, they can definitely do it. I think now it puts them in a much safer, much healthier position. And just to kind of continue talking about Secret Wars for a second, there is no director officially announced yet. There's been rumors that, it could be Ryan Coogler. I'll be honest with you. Like, look, let me just address that, actually. If Ryan Coogler was announced as the director for this film, I wouldn't be worried at all. And I would think it's actually a pretty good pick. I think Ryan Coogler has definitely earned his stripes, not only as a director in the MCU, just as a director himself. I mean, you look at Fruitvale Station, you look at the Creed films, like, this guy is an auteur. He is a fantastic director. And I definitely wouldn't, be disappointed with that pick. However, I would still say that my pick for Secret Wars would be the Russo brothers. Now, a lot of people could say, well, that's the safe pick, right? I don't even think it's a safe pick, right? Just look at what he did with, look at what he did with Infinity War and Endgame. And you've heard them in interviews before talk about their excitement and talk about their passion for Secret Wars. So they clearly know what that story is about, and they know what that story is capable of. So the passion is there. Not to say if a new director came on, they wouldn't do the research themselves, but you could just see the inherent love that the Russo brothers have for Marvel and specifically Secret Wars. And we know what they're capable of behind the camera. So for me personally, they would still probably be my personal pick, and I even think that they probably will officially be directing that film, but we'll have to wait and see. But anyways, guys, I think that is going to wrap up today's podcast of Unbashful. It was a pretty big one. Hoping to get some more episodes done later this month, maybe even some kind of Halloween episode. We'll have to see how my schedule looks for the rest of the month. But if you stuck around for this long, I want to thank you very much for listening and watching. As always, remember you could find this podcast on all streaming services: Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Amazon, Audible, Music, whatever that platform is. Everywhere you could find it if you don't have time to watch the show here on YouTube. Guys, I would really appreciate it if you like the video, subscribe, help push this out in the algorithm. It's very tough these days trying to get your name out there on YouTube, so any support you guys can show would be greatly appreciated. Of course, you don't have to, but I really would appreciate it if you stuck around this long and you enjoyed the podcast. But anyways, guys, stay safe, stay happy, do well, be great, enjoy yourselves, have a great night. That was a long-winded outro. I'll see you on the next one.